Okay, so what's wrong with the Air Resources Board? Well, they're trying to cut back on pollutants both from stationary and mobile sources. Now they're working in coordination with the air quality management districts, but they're concentrating on further reductions in consumer applications and in things like volatile chemicals from paints and off-road diesel and backyard barbecues and wood fires, and all those things definitely are bad. Diesel at the ports, is another thing. Those are bad too. But the Air Resources Board studiously ignores the big and easy reductions, which would be if they applied the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate. Now, they don't consider the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate as part of what they call the state implementation plan for meeting the governor's reduction in CO2 targets. Why not? They're doing things like shutting down diesel operations and eliminating ozone producers. So what I did at the Air Resources Board on the 27th was talk to them first about the connection between automobile exhaust and the health of lungs, which we know about, and the connection between auto exhaust and refineries, which they seem to be ignoring. And then to talk about, it's the fact that it's not the ozone that causes the problem, it's the ozone in conjunction with nitrous and sulfurous acid, which turns that into sulfuric and nitric acid, which kills the lungs. So they have these various items, and I spoke on 3 or 4 items, but the meeting lasted a long time, as it usually does, until 6:30, where they kind of wear people out. So I was able to make the point that the electric cars and solar power is something they can do that doesn't cost any money. They were complaining they don't have enough money to actually effect some of the changes that would be required for children's health, like cutting back on air pollution. And they're spending all this money on pesticide reductions in Ventura County, and the farmers come in and you're singing the weeps about all of their farm destruction, which is, there's a certain truth to that. But all they have to do is mandate the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate and allow electric cars. And the electric cars, if people could buy them, would finance their solar systems on their roof. Because the money that people used to spend for gasoline would be avoided costs that they could then use to pay for their solar system. So it wouldn't cost the government anything, wouldn't cost the state anything. All we'd have to do is have a regulatory change that allowed electric cars. And this is something that the Air Resources Board is now studiously ignoring. They're going through this big charade of, cutting back the tiny 5% that we can further cut back. And you look at their big pie chart of all the things that can be cut back. There's auto exhaust, refinery exhaust, and then this tiny little sliver, which is wood burning, restaurants, and off-road diesel, and they're going after that. They're not attacking the difficult part, which is auto exhaust and refinery pollution. And refinery pollution by way of auto exhaust is only part of the issue. There's also other refinery pollution, such as the required cost of making the electric and natural gas that goes into the refinery, and of course the upstream costs that aren't ever quantified. Wars, oil spills, transportation costs, etc. So this is what I went to talk about in the Air Resources Board, and this time I was the only one.
Next project will examine, according to the 2003 California Health Interview Survey, 4.5 million Californians suffer from asthma, and an additional 3.4 million suffer from asthma-like breathing problems. The elderly, children, minorities, women, and low-income Californians suffer disproportionately from asthma or asthma-like symptoms. The objectives of this study are to characterize exposures at the locations of the survey respondents' residences. The study will determine whether the disproportionate burden of asthma or asthma-like symptoms among low socioeconomic status individuals is associated with greater pollutant exposures, greater susceptibility due to risk.
First item was a whole bunch of studies which they're figuring out how to fund. And so my position when I commented on this, and I was the only commenter on this first item, was that they shouldn't confuse doing studies with actually doing anything about air pollution. Well, studies are necessary, but they need to actually take some regulatory action. Saying that there isn't enough money to actually do the regulations that make a difference, which are auto exhaust and refinery exhaust, those are the two big elephants in the room, is tendentious. The real action they should be doing is actually enforcing the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate. And I pointed out the relationship of refinery pollution and auto exhaust, and how those are the two things that need to be tackled instead of doing all these studies. And the idea that there isn't any money is sort of disingenuous, because they spend over $300 million on salaries and studies and all the people in the glass houses doing whatever they do. And meanwhile, the children, as shown by the USC study, are suffering permanent lung damage from the nitrous and sulfurous acid that comes from freeway pollution, not to mention refinery pollution. So that was my comment on this first item, and I was the only commenter, and they just went on to the next item.